Hello, everyone. I am Chad Webster, and welcome to the first episode of the Racing Topic Podcast. My first guest today on the show, please welcome Mr. Dale Bonham. Dale, how are you doing today?
Fantastic. And you, Chadley?
I'm doing great, thank you, thank you. Even though we're about 4 hours apart, but yeah, all that jazz. Thank goodness for Zoom. You know what I mean?
It's all good. It's snowing here, buddy. We can't get a lap in right now anyway.
Oh man, jeez, yeah, I know. It just doesn't seem like the weather's gonna clear up on us or anything. It's like it's in March, and then the snow just keeps coming at us. So
It shows a little bit of promise. We had a couple days last week. Stuff was melting, looking good, and then we got dumped on again. So
yeah,
um, fingers crossed. Hopefully, this is the last one.
yeah, exactly. Jeez. Well, with the warmer weather supposedly coming, hopefully it'll bring an end to the winter. Well, with you, I want to start. Let's start all the way back in your very young days, I guess, if you could say. So what got you into this? Where did it all start from point A?
So for me, uh, I was trying. I figured you had asked me this question, so I was trying to think of the actual like date that I started. So I want to say probably 85, somewhere in that range, 84, 85.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather owned the track in Point Peely. So I was always down visiting, obviously had an interest. So he kind of didn't, I'm not going to say force me, gave me the opportunities to drive if I wanted to at any point in time. So there's lots of times where I sat in the seat, maybe breaking in a guy's engine or doing things like that, not racing so much. And then as soon as I was old enough, I think it was 7 years old, you had to be to race. I entered in the first race I could, right? And then
Yeah.
from there, it just never really stopped. So in a younger age, when I went to school, it was great because over the summer I'd come stay with him while we could travel. So we raced at home here. We went to the States. We did all sorts of racing all over. And ever since that point, I've been hooked ever since, pretty much.
Hmm. Really nice. It seems like that's the regular point where young kids get into it. They see it, and sometimes their father's done it as well, and then they decide to get involved in it. And then some really like it, some don't. It's just you never know until you give it a try, right?
Absolutely. Well, in the
Mm-hmm.
last few years, it's been amazing. Like I don't know if it was due to COVID or what it was, but more I've seen the sport grow more everywhere, like across all the clubs. It just seemed like a lot of people took the interest in racing for some reason. I don't know if they just saw it on TV, and thought, oh, that'd be cool to get into, or if it's the arrive and drive programs that are out there or what's going on. But it seems like every year we get more and more and more new people into the sport that have never been involved ever before. So that's fantastic.
I agree with that. I do agree with that. So, my next little bit was so as you got up at that age and you got into your teenage years, I'm guessing you were going full force with the racing aspect, but also like learning a lot of stuff mechanically.
So for me, I kind of I see it a lot too. As I got older, it got a little harder because once I got a job, I lived on my own. That kind of took over priority. Maybe the realism that I wasn't going to drive a NASCAR or an IndyCar or a Formula One or something like that was not going to happen. So it took me. I'm gonna say let's go a couple 2 3 years through say 18, 20, 21 maybe, or maybe even a little later in my life, but I lost a little period. So just did some like slowed it down to club racing, had a family, started a family, and then kind of got my kids started. And that's almost what refired me again. And the second time I got refired, it was much bigger. And then to touch what ended up happening was I got tied in with Ingrata. Well, that took me, to Florida Winter Tour. We went all over the country racing. Well, it sparked a passion for me. I'd always had the passion for racing, but it showed me that, maybe not driving, but mechanically you could definitely make it farther in the sport, right? And that's exactly what happened. So, through that, other opportunities have happened now with coaching. That's become a big part of my life. And that's really cool too. So I also have engine building I've started to fall back on, which, that's been in my family for generations. My uncle has been doing that for a long time. Um, so yeah, it's something I've been involved in all my life, but let's say I took a little break in the middle, like to get a recharge of the sport in my heart, I guess you could say.
All right. Yeah, I can see that. Sometimes it's like there's some certain event that rekindles your love for a certain sport, and then you just get hooked, man, and then you just stay completely on it. So I can completely see that, especially with where you are now, because you're basically you work for Mr. Dan DeLeo, and you're basically his lead mechanic for a lot of his scholarship team drivers. Myself was included in that as well. So it looks like life's going pretty good for you on that end because I've seen you work. You know what you're doing. A lot of people say you do make a lot of real powerful motors out there. So
Much appreciated.
hmm
Well, I try hard to touch on, like you said, it's been incredible, the last few years to kind of change gears and come here and do. I never really was involved. I guess you could say I was coaching, but not so much realizing when you're mechanicking that you're doing as much coaching as you are. But now with it solely like having days where we're just at the track, say 3 hours per driver, you get so many different drivers. It's amazing because you get to the fence now to watch a race and you're cheering for about half of the field now. You know what I mean? Because
yeah,
you want to see each of them do well, but only one of them can win. So at the end of the day, it's a difficult balance, but it's fun to watch. It's great to see the smile on people's face when you help out. And incredible to say that you get to go to work and enjoy what you do every single day. So I'm fortunate for that.
Hmm, nice. So there was one other aspect. Well, there's still a couple things I'd like to ask, but another one was your time with the Ricardo carts and that team, because I know you were again. You mentioned you were with Aiden and Grata at the time, and you guys went all over the place. Because I know Aiden was still young at the time.
Yeah.
I know you also had Mark Steele, Stefano Lucente, and maybe even Ryan Britsky. Uh, I, that they were a part of that team. How was that stint? How did that go for you?
Uh, Amazing. So same sort of thing. Like one of my dreams was always, in Mark and I talked about it a lot, was having our own team or running our own team. So that was kind of part of the agreement that Ernie and I started out, was we were going to form AI Motorsports. So we had a meeting with Dominic, got the Ricardo dealer rights, I guess you would call it, and started that. So yeah, it was an amazing program. Ryan wasn't on board for, like, he purchased some carts and things like that. So obviously longtime friends. So support if he needed it, but never really under the tent. But under the tent, we also had Michael Glaze at some points. Yeah, then we had Ingrata, Lucente, Baxter. Like, we had a pretty incredible team. It was awesome. We won several Canadian championships, lots of club stuff. The one year with Aiden, I think we won every single, what was it, novice at that time. I don't think they called it cadet. I think it was called novice. I think we won every single race in Ontario that year with him under that team. It was amazing, a lot of fun. But again, it also brought difficulties, let's call it. Tough to navigate and get everybody what they need and do all those things. So it gave me a lot of respect for all these team owners and people. I really got to understand what it takes to provide that sort of service, and it's a lot. And I think the mistake I made was trying to do it on my own. You know what I mean? You need help no matter which way you go, and I didn't have a lot of help at that time. A lot of drivers, but not a lot of mechanics and coaches and tuners. So it made it difficult. But nevertheless, I enjoyed it so much. We had a blast every time we were at the track, whether we had a great day or not. Usually always somebody was able to bring home some hardware or whatever. And sometimes we had, the whole tent had a great week. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. Miss those days.
Hmm. Interesting, interesting. Because I know that I do remember that that team was very good. There was a time where all you would see was those Ricardo carts up at the front. So I also want to ask, in that team, what was your main job as the mechanic, or like your proudest moment of being the mechanic when you were in that team?
Uh, well, so my title was team manager, so I was kind of taking care of everyone while making sure that I always called Aiden little bro, so making sure little bro was taken care of was the main priority. But I always loved bringing home those Canadian nationals, and the one year we started off, we won. I can't remember exactly. I think we won it with little bro, and then Lachente won, but unfortunately got overturned. But at that moment,
Oh,
we were like 2 for 2, and it was amazing. Like I just thought, oh, here we go. All we needed was Glaze to go. I think Glaze ended up second, but led to the white flag lap, and he was saying all he wanted to do was win it for Stefano, and so like to walk away that weekend was probably going to be 3 if it wasn't for a mistake. It was a DNF intact for us. It wasn't anything Lachente did, which made it even worse. But um, that was a pretty good weekend, even though that was a terrible moment for us and terrible for Stefano. I wish I could give it back to him, but unfortunately we can't. And but that was a great weekend. So that was probably the best one for sure.
mm. 2017 Nationals, very nicely done. Um, so the other thing I wanted to ask now is, how did you? Because I know you ended up splitting ties with the Ricardo group. What led you to come here to Goodwood and be basically the main mechanic for Dan, and wrenching for all of his motors and all of that?
So like I've grew up with Dan. I've always had a lot of respect for Dan. He's respected well in the States for his driving, and Dan was actually a pretty incredible driver in his day. So we kind of always talked, you know what I mean? We've always kind of had the respect for each other for racing. And he's always said to me, if you ever needed anything, give me a shout kind of thing. So when things didn't work out between Ingrata and myself, he was the first guy to pick up the phone and say, hey, if you need anything, come on up, and give it a try. So we actually give a shout out. My first time was coming to just mechanic for David Zhao, who just won the Florida Winter Tour race. So good for him. That was amazing. I watched it live on the kart chaser there. So from there, it just kind of blew up, right? That went well. He invited me back for next year. Obviously, with my engine program, trying to get that started, I felt like it was a good choice to come here. And then, as that grew, the opportunities just got bigger and bigger, right? With the coaching aspect of it, endless mechanic jobs if needed. Um, like I said, it made it a lot of fun. It's, instead of strictly being just engine building or, I'm kind of doing something different every day. Usually always with 2 or 3 different kids, or I've even coached adults before. So um, it's very interesting. I enjoy it a lot.
Hmm. And that's another thing that I'm gonna go down the route is, in your opinion, how much do you think that, when you say coaching and all that, how much do you think that helps with like track time and knowing what are the right lines to take, and how many laps you hammer down, what's the best setup to run? How much do you think track time and just putting time and effort in general is, how vital is that to success?
Well, I believe you and I have had this conversation multiple times, Chad, and to me, that is the most critical thing out of anything, no matter what, hands down. Whether who's coaching you, whether what track you're on, what go-kart you're on, what set of tires you're on, as long as you're in a seat and you're actively doing laps and thinking and learning things out there and having fun. Let's not forget you're supposed to do that as well. But I've
Exactly.
always kind of I've I've figured out that a lot of having fun is winning races. So that's what I try to do, is help people win races so they can have some fun. And again, you have fun if you're not, but you always have a lot more fun if you're, like I said, you at least competing, right?
Yeah.
So um seat time is critical, and that's the most important. Now, when it comes to the coaching part, it really depends on the driver and whether they're going to take it serious enough, first of all, um, which most do. I'm talking the younger ages, right? Like I've had people approach me about coaching, kids as young as 5 years old. Well, it's difficult. The attention span isn't there that long. You're probably wasting your breath, let's say, for the last 2 hours of a 3 hour session. Um, but again, I go back to at least he's in a go kart, right? So you get him out there and you just it's all about fun at that point and make sure he's having fun and you try to teach him the odd thing along the way. Um, where I think it's really critical is trying to get some form of coaching or getting rid of bad habits before they become that a bad habit. Like it just the driver's been doing it for so long that they don't even realize they're doing it, right? You'll ask
Yeah.
them to stop doing something and they continue. You'll say, "You're doing it." "No, I'm not." You take a video on a GoPro or something, and then they can't argue anymore. But that is a difficult thing that you want to try to eliminate. So that's where I find the coaching is good to step in, teach them the right things to do right off the bat, and then maybe lay off for a little bit, and allow them to work on those things. Um, what's cool is being here, throughout. We coach all week, and then we're usually racing at least every other weekend. So I really get to see what kind of improvements, right? And a lot of people will come back and thank me, or they'll come back and say, "Wow, it really helped because of this, or that, you taught me this and it happened," or and that makes me feel good. It makes me realize that I'm doing the right things. Um, but yeah, it's different because when I was younger, we didn't have that. Our style of coaching it was a little different because we would have 4 or 5 kids would show up and we would learn that way. We would go out and race the 5 of us, on track,
Yeah.
and that's how we got our kind of coaching from one another. Um, but now in the sport, it seems like a lot of the people or parents don't have a lot of experience, so they can't really help. They don't know what to tell the kids, right? So that's where someone like me would come along and gladly take them out for a few days, you know what I mean, and have some fun with them, teach them some stuff, and hope for improvement, right? And then usually once that happens, it's continued success, I guess you could call it.
Hmm. I think honestly that's the most important thing is and again a lot of people take this sport seriously, myself included, because there is a lot of elements to be serious about to be successful, but you also got to have fun doing it. It's like if you're not having fun doing this, well, unfortunately, then it's like, well, then why are you doing it? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's a very expensive sport. So, if you're not having fun and you're spending this kind of money, well, you kind of question what you're doing. Um, but like I said, I hate to say that, it's only fun if you're winning. There's a lot of truth to it, but I also always say too, like if I gave 100%, then I'm happy. You know what I mean? I had
Yeah.
fun. I just want to be able to say I had the pace, or I was able to get up there, right? Um, so you can clearly have fun not winning, but most of the time, that's the most fun. Or like you said, that's that hook that keeps you coming back, or um, and in some cases keeps us swinging. I know people that go years without winning and they keep coming back, and why? Because they just want that taste again. So obviously still having fun, but that win drives them, right?
Yeah. I can definitely see that. When you find success, it just absolutely drives your confidence. And that's another thing. You never want your confidence to go down because people might not notice it, but it has an effect on your driving and your racecraft.
Extremely. Yep.
And
Yep.
that's another thing I'd like to ask you about is how would you say, like, I guess there's two different types or parts to this. It's like, yes, you can be a good driver in like maybe a one lap pace, like one lap speed, but you have to be able to do it consistently and have good racecraft. You know
Well,
what I mean?
the easiest way to explain it like you're saying, Chad, is that the race is not one lap; it's 10 laps,
Yeah.
right? And if you look at the winner, usually does the quickest total of 10 laps. Um, another thing that I kind of am proud that I grew up in is we didn't grow up in the qualifying era. I don't necessarily agree with it. I don't say I have all the answers, because it never pleases everyone. But if you listen to my opinion for a minute, you might understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
And there's examples. I don't want to center drivers out, but as you said, qualifying only proves one thing, and that's that you can go fast for one lap. And if that puts you at the front of the field for the whole weekend, that's fine and dandy. But what happens if you don't? And that's what I've seen is a lot of these drivers that can run that one lap pace, they can't necessarily stay out there. Usually the drivers that are winning are pumping out the consistent laps and doing it time and time and time again. And that's what gives you that quickest 10 lap total, which means you win the race. So I don't necessarily agree that qualifying is a great thing. I really like the number draw system. I know a lot of people don't, but it's like a lottery draw, so it's very fair. It's you pick a number and you got what you got.
Yeah.
Invert the field and then total points. And if you've done the best, then you should start up front. That's just my opinion. I get, in some maybe for national level series do qualifying, but I just don't. It's not one of my favorite parts about it. Now, don't kid yourself. I understand the game. I understand how important qualifying is now in a lot of the series or a lot of the races. Like you start every heat where you qualify. You know what I mean? So it's critical for you to get that one lap fast. And sometimes it doesn't matter how you do it, whether you got to draft, set up a guy, maybe screw up a guy's lap to slow him down. But it's critical part to our sport is qualifying up front and getting there so you can be up there for the show. Usually once you're in the back, you just make your life a lot harder to get back up front.
I agree. Also, with the lottery draw or the reverse heat order racing, as we've come to know it, do you think it makes someone into a better driver because it also puts them in a position they'd never really been before? But if, say, you're one of the faster guys, it would make you a better driver to drive up through the field?
I absolutely agree with that. And you see it a lot. You know what I mean? You see exactly like you said. Look at when you go to reverse order, that guy that can run up front, say he starts first and he finishes first, second, or third, somewhere in that range, he's okay. But then they flip it, and the other two fly back through the field and compete again for a top five, and he sits stranded, eighth or ninth position. And usually the typical answer out of most of the people is, oh, the kid was in my way. That kid was in my way. Well, it makes me laugh because I'm like, no, they're not in your way. You just got to get around them, right? But
Yeah.
obviously that's someone else's fault, in my opinion, down the line. That you need to teach these kids. With Aiden, he used to say, I want to go out front. I said, okay, cool. I'm going to put you out back first. And once you drive all the way through all these guys and you're the fastest one, then we can go front. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
to me, what good does it do going out P1 out front of everybody? It doesn't show me anything. And that's what I tell them. I need you to be out there, come from the back and go right through the front.
Yeah.
That's another excellent craft of our sport. And I'm not bashing two strokes. I'm sure some people laugh, but that's what I like about the Briggs racing is it really, really teaches you how important momentum is. And like you could make a pass and still go faster than your previous lap.
Yeah.
So it's not like a lot of classes where, like, if you're watching the two stroke, they're usually going slower. When they make a pass, usually most of them are going slower. Their clear lap is quicker. In a Briggs, you almost want to, make that pass where it doesn't hurt you so much and you draft a bit through it, and you actually gain speed. So as you're coming through the field, you're picking up speed and momentum. But the second that stops, it's a funny little chess game. I'm sure you've driven Briggs enough. You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? One
Mm-hmm.
little mistake, it looks like
Oh,
your motor
geez.
shut off for 2 laps.
Mm-hmm. It can one bad mistake could be your last as well, and I think it also helps
Absolutely.
with when you are with other people as well. It's like Well, if you do find somebody to draft with, yes, more oftentimes than not, you want to be the one out in the lead, but you also need to learn to be the one behind and how to push and how to be a follower and stay right up with them, through the corners and stuff, not just on the straightaways.
Yeah, and then another important thing is making it, as a as a guy watching the race, I hate to see it because it makes for a little bit boring to watch. But I mean, I always tried to play the game and latch on to someone, run away and high. You know what I mean? Because then, at worst off, if we don't crash, I'm going to finish second.
Yeah.
And that's why I always like to play the game. You know what I mean? So I don't care. I was never really a good leader, anyways, because it doesn't push me as much, right? I needed the apple in front of me to chase down, and so I'd gladly be the pusher. And I'll push, as long as we're doing good lap times and breaking away from the field, I'll push you all the way to the white flag, maybe two to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's important to be in both situations. Now you watch a lot of races, it's a 50-50. Sometimes you want to be out front because if it's a third guy in line, he's not going to sit there long, so you're in P2 going, yeah, I'm going to wait till the white flag, two to go, he stuffs you in the corner, you lose the draft or something, you know what I mean? Well, now
Yeah.
all of a sudden, that wasn't so good. And then, like, if you watched Zal's race there in the mini, he took the lead fairly early, and I thought, oh, he's just sitting duck because it was a 5-car train. Well, no, they started battling behind him, and he broke away, right? So sometimes the lead can be the best place to be, but I've had more often times than not where it's not the best place to be because he just set you up for the last lap move. So that's why I kind of like being in second. I could take a peek to see if it was just us. Um, and if it wasn't, then it kind of changed my game. But if it was just us, I always like to wait for the last, it don't matter who leads the most, just the last one.
Yeah. I agree with that. So I'm also going to touch up on something as well. So last year you ended up winning the 2021 Kart Stars Nationals at Shannonville, and Shannonville, I believe, is one of your favorite tracks, if I'm not mistaken. And I know you've said it before. You've raced there before. Before Goodwood decided, or the track series decided to put it on the calendar as their national event for Kart Stars. So when did you start racing at Shannonville? Was that in your teenage years?
Yeah, so I think Brian Stewart went there once or twice. There was a Crystal Cup race there, and there was a couple other series that went there. So I went there quite a few times younger, but then same thing, probably, I don't know, 10 years maybe, or 15 years, somewhere in between. Not a lot. I found it a lot easier like this year. I found it way more difficult back when I was younger because turn 3 had like how it was new and fresh and paved. This year it wasn't that way. It was a curb, so it took quite a line to get through there fast. Let's say you were kind of off-roading it and taking a jump at the same time. So but never a lot of success. The funny story for me with Shannonville is the reason it's come one of my favorite tracks is I'd never won there. And all my friends have all these bears sitting around, and every time I go to visit them, they like to point it out. So it drove me insane. So I told them I was going there this year to win 3 bears, and luckily walked away with 2 and lost one by just a hair. So yeah, it was amazing. Obviously, that's now my favorite race weekend out of all the weekends, to be honest. That was what a weekend. I wish we could just do that every weekend. It's a lot of fun.
Well, we are going to have that again this year, and I'm going to bring up a point as well, ladies and gentlemen. That is the Kart Stars Nationals this year again is taking place at Shannonville Motorsports Park. I believe that it is in August again. I will get the date, the exact date for you guys down the road when we get closer to that date. Once we get through the summer. But yeah,
I
that
got your
is.
back. August 12th, 13th, 14th.
Ah, look at this guy. Knows more than I do. All right.
Well, you got to, when you don't race much, you got to keep the calendar open, right?
Mm-hmm.
And see. So I was wondering if you're going to ask me, so I wasn't going to answer. I'm going to decline from answering if I'm racing. I haven't decided yet.
Well,
So
only time will
I
tell when we get to the
wanted,
big one.
yeah, well, I wanted to do a lot of driving this year, like at the end of last year, but then I don't know. Over the winter, I kind of had a change of mind, change of heart a little bit. It's hard for me to focus on working for other people when I'm driving. Obviously, when I'm driving, to do well in this sport, you got to focus, right? And you got to have 100% focus and 100% dedication. And shout out to Pete Rempel, had him help me out last year, and that made it a lot easier for me. But it just isn't fair. Isn't fair to the kids I work for or the parents that I work for. So I don't know. We're not looking good, but if things change, you'll see me.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And I know one more thing I just want to ask you about as well is what do you think of the addition to Flamborough Speedway on the Kart Stars schedule this year, being the final race of the Kart Stars season?
I love it. I love it. Never driven there before, so kind of want to circle something like that on the calendar. They also Jake brought a crew out to support Shannonville. That was great to see. So I think it's well deserved for sure. Yeah, I hope it's a good turnout. I really like going to all these different tracks. I think that makes it fun. I think it really helps all the drivers. Instead of running, another reason I'm proud of the track program here is the fact that it's never the same. Yeah, as you know, you've run quite a few of those events. It's not just standard Goodwood track all the time, right? To be honest with you, one of my favorite layouts is not the standard layout, right? I like a challenge and do not that the normal way isn't a challenge, but we've done it so much that it just doesn't seem like as much of a challenge as it really is, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I love the backward short track is my absolute favorite for Goodwood. For some reason, I love going down that straightaway backwards, like the way that we go. So
It's a lot of speed to be carried there.
yeah,
And yet that isn't the longest straightaway in the distance, as well as that one's also been taken over by Shannonville. That is the undisputed fastest track on the calendar with for the four strokes at least, there's only one or maybe two areas where it's just a slight lift off the throttle and maybe a slight tap of the brake, but that's it. It's just pure unhindered speed with a lot of
mash it to the
long
floor
sweeping
and
corners.
mash it to the floor and tuck under that fairing. Away you go.
Mm-hmm. You get a lot
Yeah,
of speed.
and pretty bumpy. Like, or at least there's one just horrific jump there that I never really, I think I ran 3 classes and a practice day. And I think out of all those laps, I hit that corner one lap that I missed the bump. Oh. I could not figure it out. The bump seemed to be as wide as the whole track. Oh, so, and you know how it is, as you get a little longer into the weekend, the sore spots are worse. So you're trying to find that flat spot through that corner, and I could not find it, man.
Yeah, and it starts to wear and tear in your body and everything, especially on a somewhat bumpy track.
Well, for you skinny guys, yes. For us with a little more, it's not too bad. It just takes about a day.
Yeah. So one more thing that I wanted to ask you now is, as you sit in your current position as being one of Dan's lead mechanics, where do you see your future going from here on out?
Well, again, it's interesting to try to put in perspective as to where I see it going. But for now, the part I'm enjoying the most is the coaching aspect of it. Like I said, getting to work with all these kids. So hopefully, if everything changes with the border, hopefully I'll do some winter tour stuff next year with the guys. I really miss that. I love the States. I love racing over there. If I had it my way, I'd probably spend more time over there than over here. But so hopefully bringing that into the winter. But yeah, just keep expanding on our sport. Essentially, I guess you could call it. I feel like every year we're growing bigger and bigger and bigger, and let's just keep doing that. you know, I really enjoy the coaching. I feel like it's an ageless thing to be a coach. You know what I mean? I'll probably still be in a wheelchair wheeling around the go-kart track telling people what to do. Um, but yeah, it's like I don't see myself. I'm 43 now. I don't see myself going anywhere. I've been around for a long time, you know, and it just keeps getting busier. So that's a good thing. And like I said, if we can add some races in the States in the wintertime, that would be great. We'll see how everything goes. Yeah, but other than that, I don't see me going much farther than what I'm doing now. Like I say, it's yeah, I'm having a lot of fun doing it.
And at the end of the day, that's the most important thing that matters is having fun, loving what you're doing, and it's just when you feel like that, the sky's the limit, right?
Oh, exactly. That's a lot of people. You know, they got to go punch a clock. I don't have to punch a clock. I got sun up to sundown if I wish. You know, now again, I do have schedules and commitments to make to people, but what's the worst thing we're gonna do is go out and drive go kart for a little while, right?
Mm-hmm.
So about the only time I don't enjoy it so much is when it's raining, but it's part of it too.
Yeah.
So I just take what we're given and then deal with it.
It's probably the best way to look at. Well,
Absolutely.
well, all right, Dale. So that was absolutely awesome. It's been great to hear from you again. Thank you for being the first guest on the Racing Topic podcast. It means a lot to me, and
No problem, Chad, man.
I think you provided a lot of insight on you know what racing skill is. Your knowledge will probably help out a lot of drivers this year and for years to come. It's already done an impact as well on the past few years, especially 2017. Like you said, when you had that amazing year with Ricardo, and now you're here at Goodwood helping out their scholarship team and community. So it looks like it's going to be all around good for you.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. Hopefully we can hook up again this summer. Like I said, you maybe do some live stuff in the pits or something like that. Would be fun.
I totally love
Uh,
to.
yeah, you know me. I'm pretty goofy. I'll try to keep it as PG as I can.
Eh,
But thanks for having me. I hope you noticed I have my Chad Man hat on here.
hey, thank you, thank
Got
you,
to
thank
show
you.
my support. Right on. So
All
keep it
right,
up.
awesome.
Thank,
And we'll
thanks for
we'll
having me, and we'll see you soon. Hopefully the snow melts and we'll get do some laps.
hmm I hope so too. Hopefully, we share a few of those ice cold beverages once we get it back into the racing season.
That's right. And if I'm pushing you, I'm going to let you win so I can see the beer shower you promised me. All
All
right.
right, all right, man. All right, ladies and
All right.
gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. This has been Chad Webster for the Racing Topic Podcast. Again, Dale, thank you for coming on. You've been absolutely
Thank
amazing.
you.
No problem. Everybody, keep it safe out there, and we'll see you next week. Until then, have a good one.
See you, bro.